There's not much great painting that celebrates the Industrial Revolution. But here's a most notable exception. It's given pride of place in one of the 18th century rooms at the Tate Gallery, which certainly didn't happen even 25 years ago, when the artist was still considered to be a minor and rather odd provincial painter. He was Joseph Wright of Derby. Significantly Derby because here, far away from London, was where some of the earliest scientists and industrialists lived and worked, and many of them were the artist's friends. The picture tells a story of a simple scientific experiment. The rather wild-looking gentleman is the scientist. What he's doing is to pump air out of the glass bowl in the center of the picture so that the white dove inside it collapses through lack of oxygen. It's all right, though. His left hand is just about to let air in again by means of a gadget at the top of the bowl. A boy, who's an assistant, is getting the bird cage down so that the bird can be put back safely. Meanwhile, a young man who's another assistant is timing the experiment with a watch. So clearly the three of them have done this experiment many times before, rather like a conjuring trick. But the rest of the audience haven't seen it before, and the picture is really about the different effect it has on them all. At just that moment when the bird will die if the scientist isn't quick enough letting the air back in. The elegant young couple on the left are coolly detached. If it wasn't candlelight, you might imagine them taking a stroll around their estate. There's a small boy below them, looking up in wonder, just like any other small boy face to face with a conjurer. But on the right of the picture, the reactions are more dramatic. Two young girls are terrified, horrified. Above them, their father, perhaps, tries to reassure them. It's as if he's saying, look, no harm done. And then, half lost in the shadows, sits this brooding figure, a skeptic perhaps, pondering on where all this may lead. Here, and in the face of the scientist, are the new men, the men of the future, haunted by the spirit of the Industrial Revolution and how it will change the world. The picture is a spectrum of English 18th century society at a time of evolution, the old order and the new. And Wright has seen it in one dramatic moment, in the light of a lamp. This was the kind of theme that stirred Wright's imagination far more deeply than the portraits he needed to paint for a living. Even one of his finest portraits here in the Tate, of a complacent country gentleman enjoying the cult of nature, has enormous elegance, but none of the excitement and drama of this group gathered round the fate of a dove. A year earlier, Wright had painted a similar picture, also on a scientific theme, and it now hangs in the art gallery of his native Derby. Again, figures are clustered round a scientific instrument lit by an invisible lamp. But this time, everything is calm. The figure in the center is described as a philosopher, and he's giving a lecture on the use of an orrery, a model of the planetary system. A man on the left is taking notes. Below him, a woman gazes rapt, her face heavy with concentration. There's another study in concentration on the other side of the orrery. And beside him, another of those quizzical figures, intrigued but not quite convinced of the value of all this. For the children, it's just fun. Here's that 18th century delight in the young, their charm, their innocence, their ability to be totally absorbed. All this is exactly what Wright does best, depicting people reacting to events outside themselves, people caught up in the magic and mystery of science. And he conveys that mystery to us by use of lighting, like a spotlight onto a stage. It actually comes from a lamp hidden by this figure in silhouette. And in the demonstration, it represents the sun at the center of the planetary system. It lights up the orrery itself with its bright hoops of metal. But most of all, it gives an extraordinary intensity and character to human faces. More than a century earlier, the French artist Georges de la Tour had employed precisely the same technique to add religious intensity to themes like the Dream of Joseph in the museum at Nantes. "50 years earlier still, the Italian Caravaggio had evolved this dramatic employment of light and shadow, again in religious paintings like the Salome with the head of John the Baptist, now in the National Gallery, London. Wright of Derby certainly knew neither Caravaggio's nor de la Tour's work. The idea probably came to him through Dutch imitators of Caravaggio. But it's the use to which he puts this technique of light and shadow that is Wright's most original contribution to Western art. He treats a scientific subject with the wonder and dramatic tension of a religious experience. A little imagination, and the fluttering bird, right in the center of the Tate Gallery painting, could be the Holy Dove, and the wild-eyed scientist, a disciple witnessing a miracle. Then there's the mystery of this bowl of liquid. What's in it? A sponge? It looks more sinister. There are other touches of drama. The way Wright has picked out the objects on the table, all to do with pneumatics. These two brass discs make up what was called a Magdeburg hemisphere. Through a valve, air could be evacuated. Then people were invited to separate the two halves, which of course they couldn't. Even the moon through the window adds its touch of mystery. It's as if all this was something secret and sinister going on in the dead of night. Perhaps today, with our knowledge of what the Industrial Revolution was to do to our environment and to people's lives, we are in a position to marvel at what meanings Joseph Wright of Derby managed to extract from a simple experiment with a bird and an air pump in a darkened room.